Hi everybody. In this lesson we're going to learn about logic operators in Java, and this helps us with conditional logic where we do different code depending on certain situations, and these logic operators help us do that. For example, this first one, the equality operator, tells us whether something on the left is true to something on the right. Now it could be a statement on the left and a variable on the right, anything left and right that returns a value, a boolean value, which is true or false, can be evaluated on either side of a equals operator, equality operator, and that's used with double equal signs. So for example, if a variable I is equal to 3 and a variable j is equal to 2, this boolean value will be false if we ask is I equal to j, because it isn't. So that won't evaluate to true unless they are in fact equal. Now, these are typically used in a condition statement, so an if statement. So what you would really do is you would only do this if you're trying to save this variable. Otherwise, you would just do this, right? If you don't need the variable to reuse again later on to know that this condition is true and you need to know it multiple times, if you only need it once, you typically just do this. If I is equal to j, then do some code. And in this case, it says is I equal to j. And so what I want you to do now is kind of just play with these and put them in your Hello World application. So what I'm going to do is replace that code and then have this in there, and let's just see what it does. I don't know what it did. It looks like it printed out Hello World, which is weird. Let's try that again. Either that or there's some kind of weird error in here. I don't see how. That's just strange, right? Okay, let's do... I like to leave the errors in, so you guys, if this happens to you, you'll be able to figure it out, because there's some weird things going on with this one. Okay, so now we're at a break statement, and maybe this shook it loose. Let's go ahead and just step over. Okay, it's telling us that I is equal to 3 and j is equal to 2. And then we're going to evaluate, and it just jumped right over it, didn't it? Oh, because they're not equal, right? So it just jumped out of it. And so what's happening is the program is exiting because there's nothing to do here. So let's go ahead and do something about that. Let's let it run through. So the debugger's nice to help you understand what's going on. So what happened is it got to here and said they're not equal, and it just exited on us because we didn't tell it to do anything else. So it didn't tell us this, and we didn't tell it to tell us anything if it wasn't the case. So let's go ahead and do an else statement. And we're going to learn about this in the next lesson. But I just want to have this print out for us. Why isn't it doing 2 spaces for me? That's because this is set to 4. And 4 is okay. I think the document's formatted in 2. That's why it's doing this. So just do that. Okay, so I is not equal to j. Now we'll see something come out. Okay, I is not equal to j. Now these are if-else statements, so we're going to get into that in the next lesson. Don't worry about it. It just, in this case, so that you know, if it's true, it's going to do this. Else, if it's false, it's going to do this. So that way it'll help us through this part of the lesson. Okay, so that's how that one works. Let's go off to another one. And so that is the equals operator. If it's equal, then it'll do something. Otherwise, do something else. Now here's another one. This is the inequality operator, and that says is it not equal. So we're going to go ahead and change our program back to the way it was, and then we'll do this evaluation. So not. And some people call this a bang. It's an exclamation point. So is I not equal to j, and then it'll do this code. So let's go ahead and try that out. So if we do not here, let's just go ahead and flip these statements. Okay, so now it's going to print this one. They're not equal to j. I is not equal to j. Let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so I is not equal to j. Let's go ahead and set them equal. We'll make j equal to 3 now. And now it says I is equal to j. So that's how that works. So if we're saying here, if it's not equal, then I want to do this. Otherwise, do this. Okay, so let's see what our next operator is. Okay, here's the less than or equal to. And same situation, it's same as in math, right? So less than or equal to, that's what this one's doing. So we'll just keep our same program, and let's just alter this like that. So is j less than or equal to? In this case, it's going to say no. And let's not leave this equal to. Let's see. J is not less than or equal to j. And let's go ahead and copy that. So, oops. So we don't have to do that again. And we'll just remove the word not here. So this, in this case, I is less than or equal to j. All right, let's do that. So it should come in here because they're equal. And it did. And to confirm that, we could just use our debugger. And then we step through it with these buttons up here. Step, step, they're equal, and it went in here. So that's what we wanted. Okay, and then we could just set them not equal. So I will still be less than j in this case, right? So it's going to go through and it's going to do this case again. So it is less than or equal to j. But if we flip this around and now run it, it's not less than or equal to. So you're kind of learning about the if-else right now, as well as the conditional operators. So that's less than or equal to. And these are starting to get self-explanatory now that we're going through it, because now we're just going to flip it to greater than or equal to. And it's that simple. And let's just change the words here. And we're just doing this for the human readability of it. Now, if it's true, we're going to do this, right? So if it's true. And in this case, it is true. And I like to debug in these cases just because we can see what's going on. So we'll go ahead and step. Is there a keystroke for step? F10. Let's do that so we don't have to keep using the mouse. All right, and it went right in there. And that's what we wanted. Okay, so that's good. And then we know what it's going to do if we flip it the other way, like flip the values. So we don't have to do that. You can do it if you want to play around with it. Okay, now those are the equal operators, right? Is it equal? Is it not equal? Is it greater than or equal to? Is it less than or equal to? Now we're going to get into ANDing operations. So this allows us to do more than one of those operations, as you'll see here. Now we have many variables, and we've got a couple of conditional statements here. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm just going to copy and paste that example in here. And remember, I would prefer it if you guys type, because you're learning how to get that muscle memory with your fingers, because I can think of the word for, like a for loop, and my fingers will just type it out. Of course, my brain is telling it to, but it's remembering how to do that. So the strokes just come easier. I don't have to think about when I'm typing. It just kind of happens because I've done it so many times. So you want to keep practicing that. All right, so we've got I equals 3, j equals 3, k equals 7, and L equals 5. So this condition here is going to evaluate to true. And this condition over here is going to also evaluate to true. So we should get this to come out. And so let's try our debug here so we can see it. And then we step, and it is true. So then we get that to print out, and we see that. So that's the AND operation. So it's saying this and that have to be true. If it's not true, then the whole thing won't happen. So let's just put this in here. And eventually you get used to the IntelliSense too, so then your typing comes even faster because you're only typing a couple of letters of a word, and then the ID helps you finish it. All right, we don't need to type out everything here. Let's just say it is not true. Okay? Now if we step through this, and what did we say it was, F10? All right, so it's not true. So this did not evaluate to true. One side of it did not. So I and j are equal, but k is greater than L. So it said, nope, not this one. So they both have to be true if you use the AND in order for this to happen. And you could have many ANDs. You just don't want it to get too complicated. So you don't want to have too many of them. You have to break up the logic if you're going to have a lot of those. But these both have to evaluate to true because it's an AND. So this and that have to be true. Okay, so let's just go ahead and let that run through, and let's do another one. All right, this is the OR operator. Now, it's either one of these sides can be true, and then it'll work. All right, so then we're doing it differently too. We're not using all those variables. All right, so let's do this one. Okay, we've got I equal to 3 and j equal to 7. So now we're checking, is I greater than 5? And in this case, it's no, so that's false. And then is j less than 10? Yes, it's true. Even though this one's true, this one's false, so it's going to go ahead and say that either one of these is not true. So let's go ahead and run that. Let's debug it again. F10. Okay, so either I is greater than 5, or j is less than 10. Oh, because it's an or, right? So one of them is true, and it is this one that's true. So j is less than 10. So that did come in here because one of them is true. That it's not an and condition. My brain just thought that for a second. It's either one of these can be true. Okay, so if this one's false, then this one gets evaluated. In the case of an and, if an and was here, this one's false, this won't even get touched. Okay, so let's go ahead and let that run through. Okay, so that's an or. So let's go ahead and make them both false. Let's just copy this. I don't want to type all that though. I'll just say not true, and then we'll run that through. Okay, not true, so it came in here. So that's how the or operator works, right? So either one of them has to be true. Okay, and you could have many of those as well. Okay, and now we've got the not operator, so we can change things to be not just on the outside of something. So let's go ahead and let's just use this example because it's simple. Okay, so we've got a equal to 1 and b equal to 2. Our Boolean result should be false. Let's go ahead and print that out. All right, we'll run it, and it should come out to false, and something's undefined. Oh, missed the L here. Okay, so that's false, so that's good, and that's what we wanted. Now, just by simply changing this, by putting not in front of it. Now, this, the order operation, I don't know what this is going to do. Let's go ahead and just try it out. I want to put parentheses around this, and in fact, it looks like it's asking me to because a is not a Boolean, so it won't do that anyway. So we have to put parentheses here and here. So now, let's make this a true statement. So a is less than b. Okay, so it's going to be a true statement, but it's going to be equal to false because of the not. So basically what we're saying is this not true, and which would be true. So it's almost like a double negative, but that's how it works. So a is in fact less than b in this case. So that will evaluate to true, but we're going to say, is it not true? And this will say, yeah, it's not true, so it's false. Right? That's kind of tricky, isn't it? Okay, so it's going to be true here, and it's going to come out to false as the answer. So let's run that. All right, the answer is false because this is true, and we're asking, is it not true? And so it's telling us, yeah, it's not true. It's giving us a false. It's almost like a yes, no. Or is it? I don't know. It's kind of confusing. So these nots are kind of tricky. So it's going to basically, the way you can look at it is it's going to take what is in here and it's true, and it's just going to flip it to the other way, right? So it's going to be false. If you try to think of what it's saying in English, that's going to give you trouble. So just think it's going to flip it. So if this is a true statement, it's going to flip it to false. If it's a false statement, it's going to flip it to true. That might be the easier way to think of it. It's hard to think in double negatives or a negating operation like that. Okay, so now that's because this is false, it flips to true. Hopefully that helps you. Otherwise, it's back to, is this not false? And that should be true. So, or is this not true? And that should be true. That's difficult for me, so I flip. All right, so, okay, so what's next? We are looking at operator precedence now. Okay, so that means the and is evaluated before the or statement. So if you have multiples of these, the ands will be executed first, so from left to right. So the ands will go first, and then the ors will go back when we read left to right, and these will be evaluated. So let's go ahead and take a look at the example we have here. So in this example, we've got B and C. This is going to execute first here. So B and C equals 5 evaluates to false because B equals C is false and C equals 5 is also false. So both of these are false. And then the next thing that executes is A equals D, and A does equal D because they're both equal to 1, and that makes the whole condition equal to true because this one's done and that one's false, or this one, which is true. So then this statement will execute. So let's go ahead and try that out. I'm going to copy paste and you type. All right, so I'm going to put this in here and let's run it. All right, so this code will execute, which it did. So now let's go ahead and see what it says next. All right, when we add parentheses, A and D or B and C evaluates, because we're going to add the parentheses, and parentheses, what's in parentheses gets evaluated first if we look at precedence from before. But B equals C evaluates to false, making the whole condition false, so the statement will not execute. Okay, so what it's saying here is these two are going to execute. That highlighting doesn't work real well. All right, so A equals D is true, B equals C is false. This is a true statement though because one of them is true. There's an or there. So this side is true and this side is false. So now it won't execute because this side's false. So I'll just go and add the parentheses to make it more clear what we're doing. So same statement we had before, which was true and came in to the statement. Now we add parentheses to change the order of the operations. Instead of these two happening together, these two will happen together because of the grouping. And if we run this, we didn't get any output. So let's go ahead and make it tell us what it did. And let's just say statement is false. Okay, ready? Or actually it's the condition. Condition is false. Okay, so when we run this, it should come into here. Condition is false. That's correct. Okay, so we can change operator precedence just like we could change the order of math operations. We can change these operations by adding parentheses, which get evaluated first. And is there anything else? That's it for this lesson. Thanks for watching.